Artist to Art. I'm Aaron Jack. We're live. We're going to be live with Howard Sherman today, so thank you so much for joining. I'm Aaron Jack. You can find me at Aaron Jack Line Art. I'm here every Tuesday with another Artist to Art. Sometimes Mondays. Thursdays, I'm over at Freedom Tapestry Project. So thank you so much for joining again, being present with us. We're going to welcome Howard on stage, as it were. So thank you so much, Pixman, for joining. Thank you, Leah. Hey!
You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry about that, man.
You're good. You're good.
I'm a little slow to the draw when it comes to updating my apps.
I know.
But people will jump back on.
They're jumping back on already.
Yeah,
I already see them.
They're coming
They're
in
here.
hot, man.
They're jumping
hot.
on. Oh man, how are you doing?
Yeah, the coffee's kicked in. I think I'm good.
I have my espresso right over here.
Yeah.
Grab a little morning afternoon espresso with you here.
Hey man, too much is never enough.
Oh man. So tell me what's going on? I heard that you've got a new sculpture that you're excited about.
I'll show you really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really make sculpture, but I have finished one. I make paintings. I make paintings and drawings, and obviously now I'm indirectly doing a little bit of creative writing, as you can see every day on my Instagram. But I'm gonna rotate this around, and I'll just walk around a sculpture I just did, and it's
wonderful.
I don't know if you can see it or not. The studio is a bit of a mess. I'm about 6 feet tall, and it's just a little taller than me. It's made out of paper. Let me walk around here. Again, not the best view, but if you look closely, you can see it's all, no one's seen this before. This is the
world premiere.
International debut. I'm walking around it.
Wow. International debut right here.
It's a big giant paper sculpture. So I'll come right around here, and we've done almost a 360 view, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm doing a few more. This is the one that's actually resolved and working that I feel comfortable sharing. I don't like to share too much work in progress. So that's the dealio, man. Yeah, I don't know. This sort of stuff had been on my mind for a while, making something kind of totemic. I'd been looking at a lot of work over the last few years that was sort of vertically oriented, much like the orientation of most of my paintings. And I didn't want to make anything that had too many sort of appendages shooting out from one area or another. I kind of wanted it to feel totemic and vertically oriented. It's like I could almost sort of wrestle with it. And yeah, so that's what I came up with. And also just the idea of, it's a little ridiculous to make a big paper sculpture like that. And I know that it's not necessarily incredibly archival or easy to manage. It's not like bronze or something, but that was part of the point. And I mean, the real point was I spend a lot of time looking at art, and just getting out wherever I am or going out of my way and traveling to look at art. And I hadn't really seen anything that looked quite like that. You just don't see too many big giant paper sculptures out there. There are some, and there have been some, but I don't know. I was trying to do something I hadn't seen before, so that was real important. So yeah.
Wow. And that's inspired by your paintings, right?
Absolutely. There's a sort of let me flip back. I'll talk about it for a second a bit more, because it's actually one of the only finished, well, there's a few other little finished things here in the studio, but I'll flip back to it. I mean, to be honest with you, there's sort of an expressionistic bent to it. A lot of my paintings, as well as this, there are references to sort of 50s abstract expressionism and 80s neo-expressionism in the work, but they get a little bit more figurative or cartoony or physical. And a lot of times there are things, even in the sculpture, there are things that happen in the paintings where you see something that looks like tape or collage, and it's actually paint, you know? So there's this reappropriation of ideas of, I don't want to say, I don't know if I would call it trompe l'oeil or not, but there's these ideas that are reappropriated, with paint that would have traditionally just used the actual material or a photograph. And, so I'm kind of chopping up and mixing up all kinds of these sort of art historical references, not just in literal art history, but in the process of how I make them as well, And a lot of people don't take the time to think about that, but it's actually really important to me. I mean, when they look at my stuff, they see this sort of gestural, expressive bravado or what have you, but there's a thought to how to differentiate the process and revisit the process in a new way that wasn't done initially, and that's also really important to me as well. I've seen a lot of I'm going to just sort of keep circling around and hope I don't trip and take a nosedive into the floor. So
yeah, be careful.
It is
there.
A mess around here, man. I've been working, but I mean, the other part of that too that's real. Excuse me. I know my camera works a little shaky, but the other part of that stuff that's really important to me is, I want to bring something new to the conversation, both directly and indirectly. So again, we're in my messy studio, so you're not really getting this isn't the prime money shot of this, but
this is the international. This is the international debut of your new sort of work. I mean,
you're right.
This is prime time for everybody out there. Like, you normally work in paintings and drawings, and here you're exploring sculptural materials, and you're showing it here for the first time. So
showing it here
really
for the first time, Aaron. Yeah.
I
mean, the other thing too,
like
I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it now. A few years ago, I gave a talk in Houston, Texas at the Mill Collection. They asked me to speak about a sculpture in their permanent collection by a very famous artist named John Chamberlain, who would make big expressionistic sculptures out of crushed automobile parts. And you've seen them. If you've gotten out, you've seen them, even if you don't recognize the name. And I drove out to Marfa, Texas with a buddy and did some research at the John Chamberlain Museum. They have a museum out there just for him. And that work, as well as this other new sculptor, Huma Abuba, who I was looking at her work a lot. And she does these sort of totemic figures that look like they're stoned and celestial at the same time. And I spent a lot of time in New York City looking at her work, and I went up to Boston to see a show of hers while I was living in New York City. And so somewhere between that sort of rugged, harsh, crushed metal, expressionistic stuff and these sort of strange raw material totemic figures is the space I kind of wanted to play in with this piece, And again, I almost find it humorous to make something like this out of paper too. And I just haven't seen anything that looks quite like it, So there you go. Okay.
Thank you. You want to switch around the camera? Yeah, switch around the camera.
I did not expect to do 10 minutes on that sculpture. I'm a little vulnerable because it's still kind of new. And again, it's something completely different than what I've done before. So I'm feeling a little bit fragile, but I'll live, even if people, decide to, throw some shade on that in the comments, but whatever.
No, they're loving it. They're loving it. Aren't you? Give me some emojis down there. They love it. Look, we've got fires and thumbs up.
Good. I was so busy talking and circling the sculpture over and over again, not trying to get too dizzy, that I wasn't paying attention to the comments or the emojis.
No, don't worry about them. They're here. I'll bring them in if they're relevant questions. I'll bring them in.
Cool. Oh, we're getting rapid fire floaty hearts that disappear along the side.
I love those.
Yeah.
I love the rapid fire ones.
Yeah.
You just never know what's gonna happen. Like, are they gonna explode? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I when I do my Instagram lives, I think there's one or two people that get a little giddy about the rapid fire disappearing hearts along the side, and I always comment on it. And then it's just like throwing gasoline on the fire. Next thing you know, it's like a never-ending stream of
I
disappearing
love it.
floaty hearts. Look at them; they're going right now. I find it kind of refreshing.
I do too. It makes you know that there's people out there. I think the same thing with like the emojis and the claps and all of that in the comments. It's like, oh, we're not just here alone. I mean, we're here alone, but we're also like, what is alone but here together? So
yeah, the very nature of this device.
right. I
Yeah.
want to do some where they just made a feature on Instagram Live where you can do 4 people at a time. So
Have fun with that.
right. I'm going to try that at some point. Not today, but or not now, but at some point. So why don't you tell me about some of your painting and sculpture? Because I know we have some people on here that haven't seen any of it. So why don't you give us a quick rundown of like what's around you, and maybe you can, just what's around you.
I'm gonna I'll show you another brand new finished painting. It's actually a little more graphic than stuff that I normally do. And again, we are in my studio. The light's not great. It's a mess. So forgive me.
That's the way I like it. Just so you know, like that's the way an artist studio should be. The imperfect is here, us being there.
So here's a brand new painting.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little something about it?
This is a little more graphic than what I normally do. Another thing that I kind of nodded at a minute ago when I was talking about the historical references in my work. I've also got a long-standing interest in geometric abstract painting and fragmenting those hard-edged geometric shapes. And so I'm constantly coming back around to, along with other things, I'm constantly coming back around to that idea in different ways. And in this case, you see these dark bronze, almost black looking, or some of them are black triangles. Some of them are painted, some of them are collaged. I like using that shape. I find it kind of dangerous. I think I used the term vehement one time in a social media post about the triangle. I like it as a an arrowhead, a directional device. I like the sharp edges. I like trying to find ways to formally use it in compositions. I mean, I use lots of different shapes, but I'm very conscious of the triangle. Excuse me. Pardon me. Man, I haven't talked this much in like a week. It's crazy. I'm just I'm gonna have to sit down in a minute. But yeah, so this is another debut. And then, this one's very graphic. I normally don't do this. I have friends who really respond to this sort of stuff when I do it, and I have other friends who don't. Artist friends whose opinions I get a lot of feedback on. Let me flip around really quick.
Mm-hmm.
I will show you. I'm not sure. I am going to show you some of these. These are all finished. I'm not sure if they're all going to continue to live. There might be some of these that end up being destroyed. But this is something else that's new, and this is just brand new.
So if you like one, message us right now, and we'll sell it to you right off the wall.
Right. Hey, I'm open to discussions. Hold on, let me move this out of the way. The other thing I'm doing here, I haven't done this before, but this is an entire suite of small works on paper, little small drawings that are all really riffing off sort of a blue-gray as a background color. Some a little more blue, some a little more gray, but I kind of mixed up this sort of blue-gray color. And I've never sort of gone to town using that as a reference point for a whole bunch of these. The other new thing in these is I'm revisiting spray paint in a new way and using it as sort of a collage element in these smaller works. So this is brand new. This is something I've never done before. This one right here, I really like. But not in all of these, but a lot of them you're seeing this sort of spray paint thing. And I don't know. I think it's just sort of gotten in the air lately, and I haven't used it in several years. Let me get down here. I don't know if I'm going to keep that one. I do like that one, actually. And I like, but and I'm not really sure if this sort of blue-gray, why I'm so into it right now. I don't question it that much. Maybe I've never been a seasonal guy, but it definitely, for me, feels like a winter color. maybe it feels a little bit like this ongoing, you know, if the time we lived in made a sound for me, it would be, and I'm talking about the last year during the pandemic. That doesn't have it. I like this one too, I think. I don't know. I like it now, and then I'm going to get off the phone and stare at it, and I'm going to cut it up and collage it into something else. But I guess what I was going to say was, if the time we lived in made a sound, it would probably be like a slow moan or groan. I mean, the speed that I sense, the speed of our time is not fast, but slow this last year. And I do think that a lot of people would agree with me. And when I think of the things in that context, I probably think of a cool blue-gray color, definitely not fire engine red, you know, or maybe we are in a fire engine red time. I don't know. I guess that's sort of, I'm thinking out loud a little bit, but I think there's a relationship between the speed and the color. You know, I should write something about that. Anyway, so yeah, little sneak. Aaron, you caught me with my pants down, and but I showed, yeah. So there's some new stuff that no one's seen before. We just debuted a lot of brand new work.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the premiere right here on Artist Art. So for everybody who's just tuning in, I'm Aaron Jack. You can find me at Aaron Jack Line Art. Go follow wherever it is. And I'm here with artists and people in the art world and just awesome people with artistry. So thank you, Howard, for being here today. And if you're not following Howard, go follow Howard right up there or wherever they are in the comments. So where can people find you, just so that we know right now?
I have a very updated website. It's howardsherman.com. I have an email list. If you click on the contact page of my website, you can just, there's a black button, subscribe, and you can subscribe to my email list there. I send out an email every week to keep people updated, and I'm very active here on Instagram. I was told last night to download Clubhouse, but that's a whole nother thing. We could talk about it another time.
We'll all be friends on Clubhouse.
Right. But yeah. So get on my email list and stay in touch. That's the best way to stay in touch with me, is to go to my website. And all the videos that I do on Instagram Live, I post them on my website, and they're just under the Live from the Studio page. I've been doing that the whole pandemic. So every week or every other week, I've been getting on and trying to just offer up helpful hints of my life surviving as a full-time artist all these years. And I try and offer helpful hints. I've noticed that a lot of my followers, I might be turning to 67,000 followers any minute now, but a lot of my followers are beginning artists, or they want advice or things like that. And I found like this was a good way to reach everybody instead of trying to like, you know, handle every direct message and every email individually and stuff. And so it's been me reaching out, trying to help other people with creative ideas. And a lot of times I think there are other people out there that have made more of it. You can find them pretty easily. They can offer a lot of professional practices help. And I jump into that a little bit, but I'm more interested in talking about big creative ideas and philosophical notions and behaviors, you know. And a lot of that, you can just scroll through all those Live from the Studios and see where I'm at with those, you know. I think they're really helpful to a lot of people. And I remind people of the new uploads if they get on my email list. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Could you share maybe something that's on your mind in relation to that? Like what's something that you've shared on there that you think maybe a new audience or an audience that hasn't watched all of them? Because I know, like, I personally, I love them. Like I've gone on so many of them. And like pop in and out. Yeah, I'm a fan. That's why I wanted to have you on, because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of your lives.
Thank you. Well, thank you for mentioning that. I didn't realize you'd watched them, you know. I'll tell you what happened. I mean, and I'll keep it pretty brief. I'm from Houston, Texas, but it's a really cool story. And so I guess it was 5 or 6 years ago, this art history book came out, and they used my painting for the cover. And the Houston collector swooped into my studio and bought 10 big paintings out of the studio, and it funded a move to New York City. And so I spent pretty much most of 2016 through 2019 in New York City. I did, while I was living there, I did for a little while keep a studio in an apartment in Houston, and I was flying home every few weeks here and there. But I was living in New York, and I spent I spent a lot of time walking. Not just I spent almost every day getting out and looking at art and reading and connecting with a lot of art critics and stuff and things like that. But I actually spent a lot of time walking around New York City listening to sort of personal development tapes and realizing, like, you know, I think I was really nervous because I didn't know if I'd have enough money to live in New York City forever. It was the kind of situation where you got to make the most out of every day that you're here, and every day turned into almost 3 years, you know, but which was great. But in the process of living with that attitude and listening to these personal development podcasts and things like that, and doing a lot of reading and thinking a lot about other artwork, I kind of, you know, I learned a lot that way. I learned a lot about behavior that way, and and habits and rituals and routines. And I kind of realized that, you know, a lot of these sorts of things transcend an artist's practice. There are things that you could apply to if you were an accountant or a plumber or a dentist or a hooker or a drug dealer or whatever, you know. And I do try and keep those sorts of ideas in mind. I do try and keep those sorts of ideas in mind while on those videos a bit, because I think that if there's I'm sorry, I apologize, Aaron, if I'm rambling a little bit.
No. I'm just curious if you could give us 1 or 2 examples.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think an example of something from the videos.
Just like what you just mentioned, like what are these things that, like, you talked about, like habits, you talked about different things like that. What did you learn?
Sure. Well, one thing I've learned is that everyone's afraid and everyone's got fear in good times and bad times. And the people who are successful are the people who essentially face the fear and grapple with it and not hide from it. And I've also sort of, and it's very true for artists and their studio practice and what they make. And not just what they make, but how they interact with the world. And that's really, as simple and basic as it is, that's a real hardcore truth, you know. Most people live comfortably, especially in a very wealthy nation like the United States, even now, you know. And it's not exclusive to the United States, but since we happen to both be in the United States, you know, we're fortunate, and a lot of our perspectives are a little askew. And certainly stuff like this, Instagram and being on your phone too much, does not help. But I see it as a positive device to getting the word out, you know. And yeah, so I think if there's one thing that, yeah, fear and facing fears, both in your practice and in how you handle your business on a day-to-day basis, is really important. And most people don't want to do that. And you know, I think that, I mean, the hard truth is I think there's a lot of people out there, they're on here or wherever, it's much easier for them to sit around listening to you and I talk than for them to put down the phone and just get to work, working their ass off. And the other thing that I think is really important, especially now, is that the world's never going to be a fair place. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever you, shape, size, color, whatever, the world's hard, and the world's even harder for artists. And if artists sort of realized that and got a little more comfortable with that uncomfortable notion, they'd actually be a little bit further along. No one's ever guaranteed me like it's going to rain champagne and women are going to come running towards me and tell me how great I am, you know, whatever. I mean, those are stupid examples. I pulled those out of my ass. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, this is a hard life. And I actually think that if more people sort of, if more people could just sort of embrace it, they'd be even a little bit ahead of the game. And I don't think the art market helps with that. I don't think academia helps with that. I don't think, although they both serve a purpose, and I'm obviously I've at one time or another been very involved with both of those things. I just don't remember anyone telling me this is going to be hard and you're going to have to sort of reset your mindset and face your fears in a way that a lot of your comfortable friends from high school or college aren't going to have to if they get a degree in finance or go to law school, maybe not law school these days, but you know what I mean, like medical school or blah, 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 blah. Like, no one ever told me that, you know. I kind of had to get punched in the face a million times before that started to sink in. And these are simple things, but, you know, sometimes you just need someone to come along and just tell you. I just learned a lot of things the hard way. There's a lot of, you know, I had to learn a lot of things the hard way, but I think the videos are to help people get a little bit ahead. And I know it's a little bit younger crowd that's following those if you know, look at the demographics and stuff. So hopefully that's helping. And hopefully I didn't ramble. Hopefully I answered your question.
No, I'm just curious if you could give us like an example here, like of like something from your own life.
An example of my own life.
Yeah, example from your own life, you know, because you're talking about, you know, things were hard and maybe like someone didn't tell you it was going to be that hard or something.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll put it to you this way. I mean, I didn't come from a long line of artists, and so maybe that's part of it in my personal journey. I didn't come from a long line of artists, and so I didn't really have anyone in my world with my background or education to be able to give me any kind of advice, you know. And then when I was in graduate school, which was a really wonderful experience, you know, the people giving advice were the professors, and the professors all had comfortable, tenured, steady salaries coming in, you know. Not to knock that at all. I'm not knocking it at all. But I'm just saying, like, you know, they couldn't really, I've chosen a different path up to this point, and they couldn't really give me a whole lot of advice about that other than, hey, steady gig is a good thing. And in some ways it is a good thing. I don't recommend my way for everyone. And for certain personality types, I think there's an ease of mind that opens you up to be able to work without having to worry about that. I think that there's some value in that. But I also wonder regarding that is, you know, if you happen to be in a place or you happen to not be one of the people chosen for those gigs, then there's another way to go. And that other way, which is the way that I'm going right now, does require you to just sort of not let the fears get in the way, and realize that, like anything else that's worth doing is hard and requires a lot of hard work and sacrifice. I hope that helped.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
I know I was being pretty broad there, but it's a truth. It's a real truth, you know. And then, of course, the most important part of all of it is that it always starts and ends with the work. If the work sucks, the work sucks. And if the work's really good, the work's, you know, if you don't quit and you stick with it and you keep trying to grow and evolve and improve, people will notice, you know. And but you do have to get it out there yourself. No one's going to come and find you, you know? So that's another one too. It's like, there's so many people who wait around. They're waiting and waiting. And you gotta get out there if you want. You gotta be seen, you know? And a lot of times you got to do that yourself. And then the smart people that you end up working with, whether I'm talking about a curator or a gallerist or whomever, if they're smart, they're gonna appreciate that's gonna help them help you, and you know that's gonna help everyone, you know. So, and the people that I've tended to work with understand that. So, you know, because it's a team effort. It always is, you know. I mean, getting through life is kind of a team effort. So, yeah. Again, I start to ramble after I just finished a bunch of coffee. I can't guarantee I'm being coherent or
you are your mom says hi.
Oh, right. Oh. Okay.
Your mom says
I haven't even been looking at the comments, man.
No, it's okay. Everybody's commenting and they're supporting you, and I'll bring something in if it's like very relevant. I like to stay on subject, and I know that you respond to DMs, right? So, and you'll be looking at your DMs right after this. So just like, can I just say DM you directly after this if they have a question?
Yeah, I mean, if people are happy, emailing me is really the best. But if
Okay.
send me an email, and yeah, and I sell prints off my website. If you click on available prints, and yeah, so, and there's drawings for sale and catalogs and things like that. So
Nice. And you're on every other Wednesday too, if
yeah,
anybody
I
else has
might
more
jump
questions.
back to every Wednesday, but the last month or so, it's been every other Wednesday, and I've gotten good feedback from people about them. I wish more people would send me questions ahead of time. I'm not going to do it tomorrow. I'll do it next Wednesday. And, you know, quite frankly, some of what I talk about are things that I've been reading, and I try and source the reading material so people can go find it themselves. A lot of people aren't going to bother to do that, though. They're too lazy. It's just true, you know? But, you know, it's like anything else, man. Artists got to read. Artists have to really do the homework. They got to read. They've got to write, or maybe they don't have to write, but they'll gain some clarity through writing. That's another big thing in my recent years is like, man, I've read some great books written by artists, you know, and because we think in language, human beings think in language, you know, and I'll just off the top of my head, I think everyone should, if they're all the artists on here, and I know there's a lot of artists on here, they should absolutely read How to See by David Salle. They should also read that book by Carrol Dunham, Selected Writings by Carrol Dunham. That's really good. David Salle's book is great. It never hurts to revisit. He's not an artist, but he's a critic and a visual sort of poet. Never hurts to revisit Dave Hickey. He's very entertaining, but really interesting in a very colorful way. I'm currently, I just got another Dave Hickey book. It's not air. I recommend Air Guitar, and I recommend Pirates and Farmers, and I just got, I think it's called The Perfect Wave, in the mail, and I'm working through that. I like reading a lot of essays created by creative people. Quite frankly, part of it too is I feel a sense of accomplishment because you can get through an essay relatively quickly. I also absolutely, this is my last book recommendation, absolutely recommend Hot, Cold, Heavy, Light, the Peter Schjeldahl book. It's a collection of his essays from the last several decades, and he's the art critic for the New Yorker. I'm rereading and rereading those. They're the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, you can sit there and Google the images of the artist if you don't know them, but you know, they're so wonderfully written that you stop thinking about the art for a minute. But there's an act to describing. I'm not that interested in really being an art critic, but there's an act to those descriptions that sort of permeates your subconscious, and you find it helping with your visual art, with your painting and drawing and sculpture in a way. But most artists don't want to read. Most artists don't want to get off their ass and go look. You can, you know, if you're, no matter where you live, especially if you're in a major city, you can still, most institutions will let you book an appointment where you're putting on a mask and you're the only one in there, and you can go look. I haven't stopped looking during the pandemic. I get out wherever I am and I go look, and it's totally safe. You know, in fact, some of those bigger museums, institutions are really militant about it, but most of the time I walked in, I'm the only one in there, you know? So, I mean, reading and getting out and looking, to me, are crucial, and having conversations with really other smart, art-centric people. That's all of three of those things have been like the lifeblood of my studio practice in a way, almost as much as actually getting in there and making things at a certain point. You know, I mean, I'll say this, and I think this is actually an interesting point, and this is only me talking, this isn't everyone else, but I feel like, you know, when you've been at it as long as I have and you've been cranking away, you know, you've got a rhythm to the way you work, and you know how to stop, jump in and jump out pretty quick because you've got all those tools in your tool belt and they're all well used and well worn. And in some ways, getting out and looking and talking and reading helps me at this point in my game even more, you know. But that's just me. I think where the rubber meets the road, you got to get the work done. That's the bottom line. But I can just tell, like, I look at so much work and I'm like, you know, if this person was just looking at this artist and this artist and this artist, this would get so tweaked a little bit in such an interesting way. And I see it all the time, you know, and I just offered up 3 solutions to help with that. So hopefully people will take advantage of that stuff. But all of it requires a lot of work, you know. Anyway, and most people, I find, if they're in this small town, most people are within striking distance of a major cultural center. I'd say, I'm guessing here, but 7 times out of 10, the people on here aren't so isolated at the North Pole that they can't make a little effort to get to some hub and strategically get a lot of looking done over the course of a day or a weekend or 48 hours or something, you know? So, yeah.
It's good. That's good advice right there.
For listening to me. You got me going, and then I just sort of, woof.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
We got some good comments here. We've got Guy, Geiger, Charles. Read Jack Witten's notes from the woodshed.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. So anything else, please comment when this is posted on Aaron Jack Line Art. I'll have it posted, or wherever else it's posted. Just write your book recommendations or whatever you want, because it's good to share with the group.
I've missed all these comments. I'm not going to get to all of them, but if anyone needs to reach out, just shoot me an email or whatever. You know, I'm terrible at reading while we're talking.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that we're having a conversation, and I try to bring in 1 or 2 once in a while, but I find it's always best if you have a specific thing. We had someone earlier who wanted a Trine, Trine, wanted a birthday shout out. So here you go. That's your birthday shout out. So thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you for
Trine.
watching on your birthday.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So
hey,
why don't
better than face down in the gutter on their birthday, right?
For sure. I mean, hey, spending your birthday with us, I get, you know, hey, I appreciate it. So let's see some more of your art that's around your studio.
Man, I've got one more little middle-sized work on paper that I think is done that I'll show you. And again, you're getting the sneak preview, which I
love the sneak preview.
This is
I know. I appreciate it.
Hold on, let me back up. Another one where I'm sort of fragmenting the spray paint move. And I don't know, this piece is, how big is this? It's about 40, I'd say it's about 50 inches tall and 35 inches wide, maybe, you know? So essentially, in some of these, they might feel a little bit like a portrait, or I'm sort of using the head as a device to talk about relationships between shapes and color and material. And it's kind of a recurring thing. I'll zoom in really quickly so you can see there's a lot of drawing in there. I cannibalize old paintings and drawings, and I cut them up and collage them in, and I paint back into things, and I draw back into things, sometimes with a marker. And yeah, but this is, I've never, you know, it's been a while since I've done the spray paint stuff, many years, and I'm revisiting it recently, and it's sort of in a different way, both in the paintings and the drawings, you know. And I like the color relationships with this. It's this sort of very dark, almost a really rich dark. I don't want to call it a forest green, but I think there's some blue in there, but it seems to make the yellow and all the achromatic stuff in the spray paint area sort of pop a little bit more. And then I framed it with a little cool gray. You know, what people don't realize is, like, sometimes, as far as color relationships go, sometimes these strange little accents, these cooler accents in just the right places make a huge difference and make the work feel, you know, you can only work through that kind of an issue, and it's a case-by-case thing, but sometimes they give the work, these subtle little nuances give things that are not subtle, that are actually kind of overt and aggressive, like a lot of my work, they give them this added richness, and you don't really even think about it consciously when you're looking at it, but then once it's pointed out, you're like, oh yeah. And it's, you know, I'm gonna flip back here. You know, a lot of that, I hate to say it, but a lot of that comes back to all those things you learn in, like, undergraduate drawing 1 and drawing 2 and painting 1 and painting 2, about creating volume and shadow and value shifts and blah 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 blah, you know. But anyway, Yeah. So that's about it, man.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
see. Let me see if we have any questions here, because I know we had some questions. And let's see. I'm trying to see if there any are phrased. We have DOD says stand them for their own, or did they want all of those or one piece? I think they're talking about when we were talking about all the small pieces that are behind you. Did how did you imagine, like, people, like, do people just have one of them, or like multiple pieces, or
You know, I'd
how
sell
they?
them individually. I'd sell them individually. But I'd love to install. They're on my Instagram feed. I've installed giant bodies of works on paper together, both of a similar color palette, um, and various color palettes. And if you scroll through my Instagram feed, you can totally see that. So yeah, I'd sell them individually. They're 12 inches by 9 inches, so I'd put them on the shop page of my site or something. But if if he wants to
Right
talk to
there.
me, yeah,
Yeah,
like
right there at the bottom. They're right there. They're right there. Just
yeah,
DM you if you want one, right?
yeah. Send me an email
Email.
and we can talk about it. That would be great. You can click on my. I think you can click on my email button on my Instagram profile, right? So. But anyway, I do sell them individually, but there's been several times where I've exhibited these things as a suite, and because you're making them all at the same time, and I I, I think they stand alone, so I'm hesitant to call them a series, but they look great together, installed as a series. And I did a group in New York right at the tail end of my time in New York City that I tried to sell as a series, and they're in. Um, they might still be on the the shop page of my website. I'm not sure, but most of the time they're sold individually.
Hmm. So we have another question here. How long are you going to move out to Valeri? Valeri. From Evo. Your Voltaire? Voltaire? I don't know how to say your name. It's a while back, but it looks like they want you to move somewhere.
There's on me.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know where Valeri is.
I must have missed this question. I don't know what
Oh
they're
yeah.
talking about.
I don't know. I don't know either. That's why I was like, maybe you know. Sometimes there's questions that I don't know, and I'm like, oh, maybe maybe there's like something that I don't know. I'm looking to see if there's any questions right now. I think we're okay on that. And Instagram took away my options to share more work. It had the options earlier, and it took them away. Imagine that. So I want to ask, from all of the stuff that you've shared with emerging artists, what are one or two more things that you'd like to share that you think
Well,
emerging artists should know?
I'm gonna share something that I hope that I saw something on here. Where was it? Someone talking about how, and I'm guessing they're a self-taught artist, and they said something about school helps with your vocabulary, but that's not it. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think one way or another, we all end up being a little bit self-taught, whether you've got a master's of fine arts degree or you dropped out of 10th grade or anything in between. You end up, to a certain extent, being both self-taught and academic and formally taught. And I think that certainly where school comes in handy, and you're talking to a guy with a lot of student loans, man, still after all these years. But I think where a good school helps when you're in the right state of mind or mature enough to take advantage of it and not just squander your time doing keg stands. But I think the clearer you speak, it shows the clearer that you think, and the clearer you think, the clearer you execute. And these things are all integrated, which is why I was um, talking about how important it is to be reading and looking and have a community around you that you can have these sorts of discussions with. And when I say community, I mean ideally in person, and that community triples. You trickle over to the bar and the restaurant for dinner after you're looking at the art, because all of that's part of it. That's when your guard comes down a little bit, and what you really think about the work might come up. You know, I don't think any of the social media is a total substitute for that. So yeah, the clearer you speak, it tells me the clearer you think, and the clearer you think, the clearer you take action and execute. They're all tied in together. So hopefully that person's still on here and they heard what I just said. So go spend a fucking fortune going to your MFA program somewhere, person. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I did get a lot out of mine. I did get a lot out of mine. It was totally worth it. But I was also ready to be there. I was in the right state of mind, ready to be there. And I worked my ass off while I was there, you know. So that can be a discussion for another time. Everyone I think everyone should just spend a lot of time like just constantly learning and and reading, you know.
Yeah, Henrietta asked a question. She's a painter near London. She asked, does reading sway you too much sometimes? And how do you keep focused on your work with that balance of reading?
Right. I think that's a time management issue. I'm not reading 8 hours a day every day, but I am, and I beat myself up actually about not reading enough. I spend a lot of time reading like news sources, you know, current events. I somehow think that maybe it's a hangover from my years doing, I did some editorial cartoons back in the 20th century. So, maybe there's some of that there, but I think you make time for the things that are important to you. And when you start to reframe things and think this thing feeds that thing, which feeds that thing, and they're not all independent from one another, then you start to find yourself making time for those things. So I think in the end, it starts and ends with the work. And if the work is artwork, painting, drawing, sculpture, whatever, then obviously that's got to get a tremendous amount of your time. There's no substitute for that. What I've been trying to stress today, because I see so much work that's lacking it, is more reading, more getting out and looking, and more, as Jerry Saltz would say in his book How to See, another good book to read, which I talk about a lot on my live, is Find Your Tribe. That helps too, you know. So I hope that answered her question. I don't think that reading is going to be detrimental to studio practice. I think what can be detrimental to your studio practice and can be detrimental to anything in your life is overthinking too much, you know, period. And we all are guilty of it. It happens to me all the time. Sometimes I have trouble sleeping because we've all been there. You have a hard time turning your brain off, right? Yeah, meditation, whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's another conversation too. Or people talk about meditating in order to get over that issue, but it's a recurring problem amongst a lot of humanity, especially right now, you know.
It's huge. Why don't you give us like another minute or two about that? Because it sounds like it's a big topic that I think deserves
I'm no master of that. I'm a bit neurotic anyway, so I try and dump as much of that into my work as I can and leave it there. And I'm not always successful at that. Sometimes I still take it with me. You know, so I wish I don't meditate. And I'm not, maybe I should. I mean, I exercise a lot, but I don't get out of bed and hit a yoga mat and start meditating. But a lot of people swear by it. But I think that everyone's different, but I'm not surprised that we're living in a time, especially right now, where there's this, where people are having a hard time turning their brains off for one reason or another, and it makes sense. But the flip side of that is this, and especially for artists, and artists will really benefit from hearing this. But the flip side of that is this is the time that separates the wolf from the sheep, and if you can have a little grit and continue to be creative through times like this, then there's something to be said for that, you know. And not too many people can do that. But if you can find a way to do that, which usually comes through just good daily routines and rituals and habits, then you're going to come out the other end of this thing whenever, whenever it is, maybe whether it's 16, 20 weeks or next year or whatever, and you're going to be very proud of what you've accomplished, whether any other human being sees it or not. It'll be reflective in your production and your output and your paintings and drawings.
Beautiful, beautiful. We have another question here. We have a whole comment thread. Go follow Henrietta. She's down there. Go do it right now.
We got someone hanging on the coattails.
So what type of so we have a question from Carrol Snyder Art. What type of work were you doing in college, and has it changed drastically?
Yes, it's changed drastically. So when I was an undergraduate, I got a BA in studio art from the University of Texas at Austin, but my focus was really on a daily comic strip. And I spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of my real focus on doing this daily comic strip, which I had the hardest time getting them to publish in the paper. I finally got on staff my last semester, and I kept doing it after I graduated. But so my focus was very much on that, which is quite interesting, because I had a moment in the late 90s where I actually could have become more of a joke writer and gone in sort of a comedy writer route. And I thought it would be cooler and I'd meet more girls if I became a painter. So wrong. So hard. I had no idea how hard this was going to be in such a different way. But, you're young and silly and whatever. So yeah, the work changed a lot. I self-educated myself a lot and went and looked a lot when I decided to start really getting serious about painting and getting off a daily deadline. And then I went back to graduate school 10 years after finishing undergraduate, which was really huge because I was a little bit more fully formed as an adult, and I'd had enough crappy jobs in the real world to really want to be there and make that financial commitment and that time commitment and moving away from home and all that sort of stuff. And so then my work totally evolved into what it is now, which is essentially a lot of these sort of historically referencing expressionistic paintings that have a lot to do with more of a painter's painting kind of vocabulary than any kind of a daily comic strip. It's like speaking different languages in some ways, although there's still a lot of that sort of black line cartoonish figuration that shows up in the work, and clearly in a very indirect way that same old sense of humor, because I can ramble on all day, blah 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 blah, but in the end the most important thing you can hold on to, especially at a time like this, is your sense of humor. Without your sense of humor, you are fucked. You're up the creek without a paddle. And that's, if there's anything anyone remembers that I rambled about today, it should be that. And I try and hold on to that in my work, even if it's in a very indirect way where you don't necessarily see it off the bat. There's something playful or funny or humorous or cartoony going on there. It's my nod to that idea.
Awesome. So you've kind of mixed it up in your work now.
Over the long haul, yeah. I mean, it's changed a lot. The more I learn, the more I grow, the more the work evolves. And like anybody else, I don't want to do the exact same thing over and over and over again. And the one thing that I learned from a professor in graduate school, though, is that don't be too hard on yourself if you don't see big aesthetic shifts constantly. Sometimes it's the little things like, oh, I did that back in 2018, and it may not look that different than 2021, but this has changed and this has changed. The stuff I showed y'all on the wall over there a minute ago with the spray paint, like the deck isn't always going to be shuffled dramatically. It might be shuffled incrementally if you're chipping away at things every day, So people need to give themselves a little bit of a pass, not a pass, but a little bit of a recognition in that regard. Because I think that's the way most human beings work. Very few people come up for air and they go from something that looks one way to something that looks dramatically different the next day, But that's the sexy Hollywood story that you always hear about in the media, right? But that's not how reality really is. Like, did I ramble off on a tangent, or did I?
No, I'm kind of curious about this like dramatic shift versus the chipping away. I find that like fascinating.
I
I'm
mean,
just
I
like
think that's how
trying
most
to,
people are. I think most people
yeah.
are like that. If you're working away in your studio day in and day out, I mean, that's how it is with me. I mean, I come up for air and I look at stuff from 2016 and I'm like, oh, there's changes, and they may not be necessarily that dramatic, but I see little shifts and I can point them out. There's little things I got tired of doing because I didn't want to repeat myself, but there's other things that I still love. And in the end, if I'm pleased, or somehow I feel like I've grown, that's probably a better way to put it than pleased, I'm going in the right direction. And then hopefully a bunch of people will show up with suitcases filled with money and put it all in museums, and then I can check the fuck out to some private tropical island with one of those fuzzy frozen tropical drinks with the umbrella sticking out.
Always a nice time with a frozen tropical drink and an umbrella.
Right.
Right. So why don't you talk? So Henrietta does give me an idea here. Evolve with the artwork. Evolve with the artwork. And I'm curious, like, if you could just take a moment, like, what does it mean to you to evolve with your artwork?
Well, I would say a better way of putting it would say I'd say your artwork will evolve as you evolve, and you evolve through work. And work is looking, reading, making, totally a lot of making, and living your life and the interactions you have with other people, ideally in person, you know. By the way, I mean, not to jump off on another tangent, but I will say this before, because I know we're going to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure what time it is. If someone wants to tell me the time.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up, I guess, pretty soon. But
yeah.
I will say that as now is as important as ever for artists to be able to talk to people and look them in the eye and know how it is to see people face to face and shake hands and talk to them and talk about their work clearly so that all types of people can understand. I think in a weird way, it's becoming more important now than it used to be because there is so much noise out there, you know, and that's another way you evolve. And then the byproduct of as you evolve as a person, it's reflected in your work if you're being honest with yourself. And I'm talking about fine artists. I'm not necessarily talking about a commercial artist or a graphic designer or anything like that who's a gun for hire, right? I'm talking about like people making what they really want to make as a contemporary fine artist. So as you evolve as a human, your artwork will evolve too. And sometimes that means taking a long, hard look in the mirror and asking yourself some tough questions, you know?
I think that's a very interesting point that to put out there is like the, you know, the gut, you know, working as the gun for hire versus the doing what's internal to the self, and where one, you know, some people balance those two in their own careers. A lot of people, I think, balance those two in their own careers.
Sure, no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen, you know, a lot of people have all kinds of responsibilities. Maybe they're married with kids and lots of bills and this and that, and I get it. But I mean, I'm coming at this from the context of making what you want to make, you know. So you got to be honest with yourself. A good place to start is in your sketchbook, just drawing all the time, you know. Not you, everyone. I'm just saying, you know.
Do you have a page from your sketchbook that you could show us?
Well, you know, it's funny is I don't really keep a sketchbook these days. These small works on paper, I do them very spontaneously, and they've kind of become, although I consider them fully resolved, finished drawings or works on paper, they've kind of become my daily drawing activity. And I've almost always got them going while I'm working on something that's a little bit more slow paced, laborious, time consuming, which is usually a larger painting or like that sculpture I showed you earlier. So I don't, but you know, that doesn't mean I won't start doing that again at some point. I used to carry one around all the time, and I recommend that artists do that, you know. And sometimes it's for no one to see but yourself, you know. and other times it's for you to share with the whole world because it's an interesting window into how you think in a more in a more unencumbered way, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So to wrap this up, I know we're hitting our window here. So why don't you share with us where everybody can find you?
HowardSherman.com, www.howardSherman.com. I update the website all the time. If you click on contact, the best thing you can do is subscribe to my email list. You just click the black button and subscribe and sign up. Click the black button on the contact page. So my email list is great, and that's the best way to find me. Active here on Instagram, but you know, algorithms change and this and that. You just never know when you're sitting on someone else's real estate how things are going to shake up. But yeah, so I'm real active on Instagram, but getting on my email list is a great way to stay in touch, and you'll know everything that's going on. You know, what prints are for sale on the available prints page and on the shop on my site. Everyone go get a catalog. They're on the shop page on my website. And, you know, when I got exhibitions coming up and new videos and things like that. So I've become, I hate the term content, but I guess I've become much like you, Aaron, a bit of a content creator during the pandemic. I've got so many videos now and I never really thought about it, but it seems like, you know, in addition to the pandemic, it felt right to do more of that sort of thing. At this place in my life, my career, where I've been in the arena taking blows and dishing them out for so long, it seemed like it'd be a good time to sort of document my thoughts with video, you know, so it's all kind of worked out the way it was supposed to.
Well, you've definitely inspired me. I mean, just by keeping up on it, I see you on the lives and I'm just like, oh, I got it. You know, for a while, it was really hard for me to keep up on the lives. I mean, now I'm booked out through May. So with these interviews, whether I like it or not kind of thing, it's just like, oh, I get, you know, getting up and hanging out. I'm like, you know, and I love it every time I get on. It's sometimes, you know, hard to, you know, wake up and but like, got to get up and do it. So
yeah.
you continuing on your journey, you know, helps me get up and continue on mine. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man. I mean, it's like anything else. You know, it's important to be consistent about it. You know, my intention, my goal in life is not to be Mr. Video Dude. It just sort of supplements. I've just realized it's sort of supplementing my thinking, and that's supplementing my number one priority, which is the artwork. You know, so.
And just as much of the art here, you know, it's you. And so I really appreciate getting to know you and your thought process behind your work and, you know, what you've learned through working with your work. So I really appreciate, you know, you sharing that process, you sharing it with us today, and you doing your, you know, sharing that process on your every other Wednesday.
Oh, so well, I appreciate the time and thanks for having me, Aaron.
For sure. So before you go, I'll share for everybody out there. I'm Aaron Jack. You can find me at Aaron Jack Line Art on Instagram. It'll be in my Instagram TV, hopefully. And then, yeah, I'm here every Tuesday for the most part. And then Thursdays, I'm over at the Freedom Tapestry Project. Our curator for Freedom Tapestry Project is in Syria, Samia, and then our producer is in LA. And then this one on Aaron Jack Line Art is just, you know, more people that I'm just curious about and I want to share with the world. So I'm the curator here. So thank you for being here with me. And so thank you, Howard. And thank you to the audience who's been here with us, asking questions, being present, and here just being supportive of you. So, and this process. Would you like to, before we go, why don't you share something that the world needs to hear, just something from your heart that you think, you know, to inspire the world, that the world really needs right now?
Kind of like what I was alluding to before, just you got to work and don't let the fear get in the way. Just keep going, just keep moving, you know, make your work, and move forward. Don't paralyze yourself with analysis or anything, you know. So this is a time that's going to separate the people who get things done versus the people who end up just stalling out, and let your artwork exemplify one of the people who's getting things done, whether anyone sees it or it's commodifiable or not, you know. That's it. I appreciate the time, Aaron. Thanks for everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. You just have to exit out the button.
Okay.
And that's all you got to do.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I know Gabby just joined. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm Aaron Jack. You can find me at Aaron Jack Line Art. I'm on Clubhouse at Aaron Jack. So follow me there and join on the adventures. If you want to be on my email list, just DM me with your email and I will add you on my email list, because that's one of the best ways over the long term to stay in touch. So thank you so much. We'll be back. I'll be back on Thursday on the Freedom Tapestry Project. This is the first Thursday of the month. So we are going to have open impromptu interviews. So anyone can sign on, request. Who knows what we're going to do. I always just I like to have fun. So go add Freedom Tapestry Project on Instagram. That's just an amazing place, an amazing community. So many artists from around the world connecting together. Really just it's a beautiful community. So please add the Freedom Tapestry Project. I just want to thank you so much for being here, being present with us. So rewatch this. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.